Come back to negotiating table. Minister of Information and National Orientation appeals to organize labor as first day of industrial action hits the nation.
This is a heartfelt and deeply considered appeal to the labor unions to continue along the path of negotiations with the federal, state governments, and the organized private sector.
How will revocation of Heritage Bank license affect its customers? Outer Southern Expressway opens, commuting easier for Abuja residents.
What counts is leadership, and what this nation needs is quality.
Good evening and welcome to NTA Network News. Live from Abuja, I am Ibrahim Ismail Ahmed. The federal government has again appealed to organized labor to come back to negotiating table in the interest of peace and socio-economic development of the country. At a media briefing alongside Minister of State Labor Nkiruka Onyejiocha and Special Advisor to the President on Information and Strategy Bayo Onanuga, Minister of Information and National Orientation Muhammad Idris insists that labor needs to consider the consequences of a nationwide strike and come back to the negotiating table. The federal government, he added, is not an opponent in the ongoing negotiations, but opposes labor's demand of 494,000 naira minimum wage, which will cost the federal government 9.5 trillion naira annually for about 1.2 million federal government employees only.
Of the tripartite committee that has been established by government to fashion out a new, realistic minimum wage for the people of Nigeria. As government, we are desirous of a very peaceful outcome, and we will do everything to make this happen. As we have explained earlier, Labour's current proposal of 494,000 naira is an increase of 1,547% on the existing wage and translates into an annual wage bill of 9.5 trillion naira for the federal government of Nigeria alone. This, of course, does not include the subnationals and the organized private sector. We want the labor unions to understand that the relief that Nigerians are expecting and that they fully deserve will not only come in the form of increased wages. It will also come as efforts to reduce the cost of living and to ensure that more money stays in the pockets of Nigerians. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is firmly committed in doing what is right, reasonable, and sustainable regarding these minimum wage negotiations.
The labor union will organize the private sector and of course government side to come to conclusion, because we can't allow our nation to get into crisis. As we speak, what has happened today has brought a lot of hardship in Nigerians.
The government spokesperson wants all stakeholders to appeal to the organized labor to embrace ongoing negotiations as the best option to a sustainable industrial peace and guarantee a speedy economic recovery process embarked upon by the government. We also have accounts of how first day of the industrial action played out in states. In some of the states, the reverberations were deafening. Banks closed, public offices under lock, and government activities grounded to a near total halt. Ogochukwuka Ona tells us more.
In Benin, Edo State, Edeago reports that government hospitals discharged patients, among other offices that were grounded to a halt. The situation was the same in Jos, Plateau State, as reported by Ndeyang and the Aba gang.
Nobody is not feeling the hardship in the country.
Solomon Ayedeyin in Lokoja, Kogi State, equally reports that the strike was adhered to by workers.
All the filling stations can go round, shut down. There's no electricity here now. The banks are shut down.
It was also total compliance in Kaduna State. The situation was monitored by Jamila Abubakar.
97 to 98% of total compliance today in Kaduna, and we believe tomorrow it will be more than this.
Aisha Abubakar Yahaya was in Ilorin Metropolis, Kwara State, for a situation report.
I will call on the labor to return to the negotiating table and give a time frame for this negotiation.
In Kano, Habibu Hussaini reports that although the Kano airport shut down domestic operations, this did not affect Hajj operations as airlift of pilgrims was completed.
The Hajj operation is not affected, so also international flight because of the bilateral agreement between nations. We decide to focus more on the domestic before getting on to the international.
It also stalled judicial matters, especially in respect of the Emirate-ship tussle in Kano. In Abuja, Ogochkuka Ona, NTA News.
Air travelers at domestic wing of Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja, appealed to the organized labor and the government to speedily resolve contending issues that led to the nationwide strike. Aliyu Kabir has an update from the airport.
In the early hours of Monday, 3rd June, the striking labor union stormed the entrance of the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, dispersing air travelers and preventing them from gaining access into the departure hall. Some of the travelers who were not happy with this development declined to comment on the situation, while others said they had been stranded at the airport since morning, not knowing how to get back to their various destinations. As at the time of the NTA crew visited the airport, all the doors to the airport facilities were locked. At the international wing, activities were steadily going on without any hitch, although no plane was on ground. In Abuja, Aliyu Kabir, NTA News.
For more on the industrial action and its likely effects, we are joined now by the former Director General, Voice of Nigeria, Osita Okechukwu. Chief, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much and good evening.
Yeah, these are indeed delicate times, especially when you juxtapose the rationale for the labor union's demand and government's position as well. Now, what is your analysis of the situation as far as both sides involved are concerned?
Let me start by repeating my position. My position is appeal to the Nigerian organized labor not to throw away our baby democracy with the bathwater, because as Abraham Maslow, American philosopher, psychologist, said there is hierarchy of needs. I appreciate the suffering in the land. I'm in league with labor that there is hardship, that there is declining living conditions, and that it's not been easy for families to meet up with their daily needs. I give an example of the other few days. My wife came from the market and she said I should bring my notepad. I said, what is it about? She said, it seems she lost some money. I said, in the market? He said, yes. I said, no, you cannot. You're a careful person. You're not like myself. She said it's not a joke that I should pick up my pen. So I picked up my pen and my notebook. I started jotting all she bought. She discovered that she didn't lose any money. So I told her it was runaway inflation, that we'll come to terms with it. So the labor, we're all suffering what the labor had mentioned. But what I'm advising the labor is that Plato, one of the philosophers of the last century, he said necessity is the mother of all inventions. There is an invention that labor union should come up with. One, the federal government of Nigeria, the local governments, states, and the private sector in the tripartite arrangement had come up with 60,000 naira monthly. Yes, I agree with them that it is not realistic, but the issue is not about realism. The contest is between realism and affordability.
Then what other approaches do you think the organized labor could adopt to demand for their rights in addressing this dispute?
And that's why I was talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It happened in UK. What the labor union did was to persuade the government to go for mortgage housing. Luckily for the Nigerian workers, those at the federal level and the state level had been paying about 2.5% of their salary, contributing it to the National Housing Fund. So there's seed money. Then they should persuade the federal government, the state and the local council, and the organized private sector, that every Nigerian worker in the next few years should have his own owner house. Because Maslow said, in the hierarchy of needs, shelter is one of them. Because shelter brings peace of mind for the family. It brings health. It improves living conditions. It encourages productivity. And even transportation. The federal government has said they are budgeting 100 billion for the CNG. So if they have the CNG and the workers are clustered in a place, it becomes easy for the boss to apply to and fro with the workers. It reduces transportation, it reduces rentage. Rentage is one of...
But Chief,
access to mortgage... I'm Mr. Sito Okechukwu.
Okay, Mr. Okechukwu.
Yes,
access to mortgage has been a major challenge in this country. Don't you think it's a protracted thing for workers to get access to mortgage?
And that's what I said is necessity is the mother of invention. If labor includes it in their bouquet of demands, because the issue is that we're facing hyperinflation. If you pump in the kind of money they are thinking that you should pump into the society, the market will not absorb it. And to be honest with you, a lot of people go back with the impression that the federal government is making billions out of the fuel subsidy. No. What happened in the fuel subsidy is that it was being borrowed. What President Tinubu achieved is that we are no more borrowing for fuel subsidy.
But could this issue then have been resolved earlier than now? This issue of minimum wage?
It's never too late. Talking of earlier, I told you that in the 14 items that the federal government listed, they did not include housing. In the bouquet of the labor, the paltry 40,000 is what they gave to housing, which is false. Because you do not own your own house, the landlord becomes your headache. So if they place housing, and luckily for us, the leader of the TUC, Festus Osifo, he comes from the oil sector. So he knows how much that is accrual. It's not like any other person on the street.
Mr. Okechukwu, I understand that mortgage can generate economic activity. But moving on, now that the federal government has invited labor back to the negotiating table, what is your advice to both sides?
My advice is that the economy cannot absorb liquid cash. That we should go for something tangible, like the houses for the Nigerian workers. It's not impossible. It happened in many countries of the world. And that brings succor to the same workers. Instead of just pumping liquid cash to pursue few foods in the market, the product in the market will not increase because you pumped in more money. Rather, what the federal government said is that they are also going to encourage agriculture for more productivity to tackle food production. They are going to help in transportation. So if you have your own house, it becomes #1 situation. That is my position.
Former Director General, Voice of Nigeria, Osita Okechukwu, thank you very much for joining us on Network News.
I appreciate it.
Moving on, senior secondary school students sitting for WAEC examination in the FCT were not affected by the ongoing strike. Schools remain open for both the senior secondary school students, internal invigilators, external invigilators, and supervisors who are participating in the examination exercise. NTA News observes that though there is substantial compliance with the strike, Labour has kept its promise to exclude schools and students sitting for this year's WAEC examination from the industrial action. Hadiza Godwin Ebune reports.
Out here is a strange Monday, a day crippled by industrial action, Yet the schools are open for the day's business, even though it is not business as usual. Senior secondary schools are among the privileged few institutions that are exempted from the ongoing strike due to the ongoing senior secondary certificate examination in the West African countries.
I'm here today and I'm writing my exam and I'm not aware of the strike ongoing, and it's not affecting my senior work. It's not affecting my senior work exam going on.
Strike has not stopped the examination, just like every other examination. It's just like every other examination, but I know actually stop it.
And for everyone involved, teachers, parents and students, their exclusion from the strike is a sign of relief.
So despite the ongoing strike, our examinations are still taking place. It's not affecting us in any way.
Despite the strike, we are still commencing on the we are still writing the exam.
Meanwhile, both primary, junior secondary school students have been sent home and the schools are under lock. Hadiza Godwin Ebuni, NTA.
The chairman, National Hajj Commission, Jalal Ahmed Arabi, has given assurance to intending Muslim pilgrims that the industrial action by Nigeria Labour Congress will not affect airlift of intending pilgrims to Saudi Arabia. He gave the assurance in Yola while giving update on Hajj operations by the Commission. Yusuf Jika reports.
So far, over 37,000 pilgrims were airlifted to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for this year's Hajj exercise out of over 51,000 government-registered intending pilgrims.
Been evacuated from Nigeria, already in Mecca, settling down and preparing for the Hajj proper.
He said consultations are on with the Nigerian Labour Congress to allow for smooth airlift of pilgrims, as any disruption on the part of flights will affect the whole system.
We had made attempt to on our own to reach out to the stakeholders, those that are involved either in the negotiation or championing the strike, as it were. Nobody should prevent NLC from exercising their constitutional right. The process of conveying the pilgrims is part of the pilgrimage. Pilgrimage is a fundamental and cardinal pillar of Islam. So there are some sensitivities that we need to avoid as much as possible. Conveyance of pilgrims to the Holy Land is ongoing. It is time-bound. So any disruption of it will not allow the Saudis or make the Saudis to say, well, we'll wait until Nigerians come in. Once the time elapses, that will be the end of it.
In Yola, Yusuf Jika, NTA News.
You are watching NTA Network News. More stories after the break. The rehabilitation and expansion of roads in the FCT is to make commuting easier, open up businesses and ensure safety of lives. President Bola Tinubu, represented by Vice President Kashim Shettima, reaffirms that the renewed hope agenda is committed to prioritizing the lives of Nigerians. Aisha Uba Ali reports that this was at the inauguration of the Outer Southern Expressway to Ring Road 1, Abuja.
This is the fourth in the roll of projects being commissioned by Mr. President. And today we are here at the Outer Southern Expressway, which is known as OSES. Here, this road is very, very crucial to Abuja road network as it links up to the Inner Southern Expressway, known as ISES, through the Southern Parkway. But something very important about this road is that it has 4 overpasses and 3 pedestrian bridges.
The project is about 6.28 kilometers, linking 5 roads, all named after past presidents of Nigeria. And the overview by the Executive Secretary, FCDA, Hadi Ahmed, the rehabilitation and expansion is not only giving FCT a facelift, but most importantly, fulfilling the infrastructural mandate of the present administration. As the Minister of State, FCT, Dr. Maria Mahmoud, says this has facilitated economic growth.
And hard work have made this project a resounding success, benefiting everyone who calls our city home.
FCT Minister Nyesom Wike says since 2013, the project was awarded. It has lingered till the coming of the President Tinubu administration, who gave a mandate that all projects must be completed.
For those who think that it is a bare talk, if you come to Abuja,
you will know that the leadership agenda is really true, and that is what we're enjoying today.
The president, represented by Vice President Chikashin Shettima, says the administration will continue to provide an enabling environment to stimulate businesses at both private and public sectors. And this can only happen through provision of good road networks.
Under Wike's leadership, we have witnessed remarkable strides in infrastructure development, urban planning, and sustainable growth in the nation's capital. Under Wike, we have proved to the world that what counts is leadership, and what this nation needs is quality leadership.
Before December, the FCTA promises to commission more projects within the area councils. In Abuja, Aisha Uba Ali, NTA News.
The Central Bank of Nigeria, the country's apex bank, has revoked the operating license of Heritage Bank, one of the country's commercial banks. The CBN cites breaches of financial regulations and poor financial performance as reasons for the revocation. This move has sent shockwaves throughout the financial industry, leaving depositors, investors, and stakeholders wondering about the implications. Meanwhile, the Nigeria Deposit Insurance Corporation, NDIC, says it has commenced the liquidation process of Heritage Bank with immediate effect. A statement by Director Communication and Public Affairs, NDIC, Bashir Nuhu, says depositors of the bank that have alternative account within the industry will be paid up to the insured amount of 5 million naira per depositor using their bank verification number BVN to locate their alternate account, while depositors with funds in excess of 5 million will be paid liquidation dividend upon realization of the bank's assets and recovery of debts owed to the bank. And what does this mean for the bank's customers, employees, and the broader financial landscape? Joining me now is Professor Uche Uwaleke, financial economist and director, Institute of Capital Studies, Nasarawa State University, Kefi. Professor is here to help us understand the implications of this development and what it means for Nigeria's financial sector. Professor, welcome to the Network News at 9.
Thank you so much. My pleasure being here.
By this CBN decision, it is implied that the Apex Bank have followed the due process for revocation. Can you kindly take us through the process and tell us if you also think the principles of natural justice were adhered to in this case, including the right to a fair hearing and the right to be heard?
Thanks so much. Well, let me start by saying that the revocation of the license of Heritage Bank, in my view, is one move by the central bank that is in the interest of the financial sector in Nigeria and in the overall public interest. Heritage Bank is not one of the listed banks on the Nigerian exchange, so you would expect that the financials are not in the public space. But of course, the bank submits returns to the central bank and as well as the NDIC. And the central bank has told us that the bank is clearly in breach of Section 12, subsection 1 of the Banks and Other Financial Institutions Act of 2020. And if you go through that section, okay, some of the provisions in that section says that the central bank has a right to revoke the license of a bank if the assets of that bank, okay, are not sufficient, to meet the liabilities of the bank. In other words, of course, when assets are less than liabilities or liabilities are more than assets, you have a case of a negative share capital. So when a bank has negative share capital or even shareholders' funds, it calls for that kind of action from the central bank. One of the provisions also says when the central bank is, has reason to believe that the bank is critically undercapitalized, with a capital adequacy ratio below the stipulated prudential minimum, in this case 10%, again the CBN can carry out such revocation. And of course, when the situation of a bank threatens financial system stability. So you have those provisions clearly spelled out, and the central bank in this instance must have taking all that into cognizance before revocating the license of
well, it has already happened. How will this development affect investors, and what are the likely impact on customers of this bank?
Yes, of course. Usually, after a bank license is revoked, the central bank, will appoint the NDIC to liquidate the bank. Of course, in line with again Section 12 of BOFIA. Now, the stakeholders really don't have any reason to fear. I just mentioned the case of the shareholders of the banks. Already, they don't have anything even to claim. The position is already negative. But for the customers of the banks, whether you're talking about particularly the depositors again don't have anything to fear. Luckily, we have a new deposit insurance scheme being implemented by the NDIC, new deposit insurance coverage that covers up to 99% of depositors. So what that means is that depositors of funds in Heritage Bank are likely to get the full value of what they have deposited. That's 5 million naira, because 99% of that of depositors, are covered. It's just a few of them, that would normally have funds in excess of 5 million, and those ones will of course get their money after the assets of the bank, okay, including the outstanding loans and other assets are realized, and these people can now get liquidation dividends. For the employees, of course, any money that are being owed will rank as unsecured creditors, and they will also eventually get their funds. So essentially, I don't see any of these stakeholders, losing.
In Nigeria, we have experience of this bank liquidation, recapitalization. Truly, even though the CBN said something about this, but does this action suggest something broader in the Nigerian banking sector?
Yes. As I said, the whole idea is to ensure financial system stability. Okay. The banking sector.
Are we in trouble?
No, we are not. The central bank is, has told us, and we have reason to believe that the financial soundness indicators of the banks are healthy. Whether you're talking about capital adequacy ratio, or you're talking about liquidity ratio, or you're talking about non-performing loans, that they are all healthy. So the few of them that would appear as outliers. In the case of Heritage Bank, for example, central bank says that they have tried to put in place several supervisory steps in order to arrest the decline, which
you have assured us that locally, not much problem. But is there an international implication to this scenario, seeing how it might be perceived as having the potential of causing reputational damage to the financial system?
No, it's even on the reverse. As I said, the move is meant to engender confidence, instill public confidence. We have had situations in which, in recent time, customers, depositors of the Heritage Bank had difficulty assessing their deposits. So what the central bank has done now will even send this signal out there that the central bank is on top of the situation and that our banks are healthy and strong.
We just heard in the news that NDIC has started the process of liquidation. What does that, can you just enlighten us on?
The process of liquidation, of course, is trying to, first, of course, the NDIC will try to settle the depositors. As I said, over 99% of depositors will get their 5 million naira, which is insured, the guaranteed, maximum. Then thereafter, anybody who has any money in excess of that will stand to also get something by way of, liquidation dividend. So the NDIC will also go into the process of realizing the assets of the bank. We understand Heritage Bank, for example, has 127 branches and has a loan book portfolio of about 750 billion naira. Although much of that, is impaired, about 90% non-performing, but a lot to be realized. And from what is realized, NDIC will settle anybody who has anything in excess of 5 million. But I can tell you that NDIC has enough funds to meet, depositors.
Professor Uche Owaleke, financial economist and director, Institute of Capital Market Studies, Nasarawa State University, nearby here in Kepi. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Also tonight, we embark on a journey of rhyme to explore how poetry mirrors life in Nigeria and gauges the pulse of the nation. Using the rhythm of words himself, our own Nnamdi Odiko talks about the nation's struggles and her triumphs, a tapestry of Nigeria's story woven through a poet's words.
My Nigeria, a paradox of sort, an oxymoron of missed opportunities, yet not taken seriously by some. Soothsayers, gainsayers have had their time, but what meets enter the fray, not to bray, but to pray.
Do you not know that poverty is not an Ijoman? He will not spare the rest of us and afflict only the Ishan. He will step across the river and come across the border. So when the drums sound, let everybody answer.
Poets speak, but these days nobody answers. Their dying art is worse than cancer. Their food for thought lights the lack of thought in a society in their need of the Midas touch.
Even now you find a lot of modern poetry very angry, very critical of society and politics. It just seems like poetry just lends itself very readily to that.
The spoken words surely is giving new answers to the quest and questions raised by today's poets. They render not in duet, but in verses soaked in ancient capsules.
And so do not think too much of this narrative, because like you, I am in this nation a native, whose hope, just like yours, is for a better day in March and April, not just in May. In Abuja, Nnamdi Odiko, NTA News.
The federal government is to introduce a policy that will upscale and attract investment in livestock and dairy production geared towards cutting down importation of milk. This comes as Nigeria joins the world to mark this year's World Milk Day. Musa Baba Aliyu reports.
Nigeria is ranked among the world's largest importers of milk, in spite of the fact that the country is housing a large population of cattle, estimated above 60 million. The Central Bank of Nigeria says the government is spending $1.5 billion on milk importation annually. Investigation reveals that most of the cows in the country, especially the white Fulani breed, are not capable of producing enough milk to meet the country's demand. But the policy being introduced by the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security is to enhance production through artificial insemination that will increase milk production of the local breeds of cows. Minister of State for Agriculture and Food Security, Aliyu Sabi Abdullahi, stated that the policy will also address challenges associated with pastoralism. He was speaking as the country marks World Milk Day.
We shall launch a renewed hope milk industry public awareness campaigns to highlight the importance of dairy products for nutrition and health, particularly among vulnerable groups like children and pregnant women. It is our hope that the collective implementation and monitoring of our progress can transform Nigerian dairy value chain, enhance food and nutrition security, improve livelihoods, and contribute to the renewed hope agenda of the President.
It is our belief that the judicious implementation of all the provision of the National Dairy Policy will catalyze strategic investment in the dairy value chain that will drive Nigeria towards self-sufficiency in milk and dairy products.
Kano State, in partnership with Islamic Development Bank, has established milk collection centers in the state.
Milk collection centers, we also provided solar power systems. We provided the milk storage room. There is a milk collection tank, a milk storage tank, the complete solar system powering the whole system, as well as other basic amenities.
The theme for this year's World Milk Day focuses on the significance of dairy in providing nutrition and nourishing the world. Musa Baba Aliyu, NTA News.
You are watching NTA Network News. We'll be back after the break. Kwara State Governor Abdurrahman Abdurazak has flagged off distribution of 16,000 textbooks and other instructional materials for basic schools across local government areas of the state. Aisha Abubakar Yahaya reports that the distribution is taking place under the supervision of the State Universal Basic Education Board, SUBEB.
Governor Abdurrahman Abdurazak-led administration has been transforming the education sector in the state for some time now, ranging from renovation of classrooms to recruitment of 4,700 teachers and the implementation of a tech-based program that has improved the learning outputs in the state. The flag-off of 16,000 textbooks and other instructional materials by Governor Abdurrahman Abdurazak is another way of improving the education sector. Governor Abdurrahman Abdurazak, while flagging up the distribution at SUBEB office in Ilorin, said Kwara State will no doubt excel in the sector, especially with the payment of backlog of counterpart funds from 2013 to 2023. The executive chairman of Kwara State Universal Basic Education Board, Professor Rahim Adaramaja, who lauded the efforts of Governor Abdurrahman Abdurazak at ensuring the education sector in the state gets the best attention, said the textbooks would definitely make a huge impact on the children.
SUBEB is one of the sectors that you have invested greatly. Close to over 20 billion that you have invested in basic education. We thank you, Your Excellency. We appreciate what you are doing.
The State Universal Basic Education Board is expected to begin the distribution as soon as possible. Aisha Abubakar Yahaya, NTA News.
To enhance science education and provide better learning opportunities in science-related subjects, the Kaduna State Government has inaugurated a new modern science secondary school at Manchok in southern Kaduna. Muhammad Umar Ajingi reports.
The people of southern Kaduna are now witnessing rapid transformation. The state governor, accompanied by his deputy and other stakeholders from southern Kaduna, unveiled this modern science secondary school at Manchok. The school is equipped with advanced facilities to enhance learning of science-related subjects.
The commissioning of this boys' science secondary school is an important step towards repositioning our youth to be relevant in the fast-changing and complex world. Science and technology are the key drivers of economic development. In partnership with Google, we have so far trained 3,500 women and girls in data science and artificial intelligence.
Apart from improvement in the educational sector, the state government has embarked on construction of new roads across various local government areas in southern Kaduna, including this feeder road from Tachira to Kagarku and Kaura local government area.
Our administration has prioritized infrastructure development, especially road infrastructure. Since the inception of our administration, we have performed the groundbreaking of 54 roads across Kaduna State, totaling 675.5 kilometers.
The people of southern Kaduna said these improvements have not only enhanced educational opportunities in the area, but the roads have also improved connectivity and accessibility, fostering economic growth and improving the quality of life of the residents. In Kaduna, I'm Muhammad Umar Ajingi, NTA News.
We will take a short break now. This is NTA Network News live from Abuja. We are now joining correspondent Thekla Wilke via telephone to give us an update on the tripartite meeting going on at the office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. Thekla, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Ismaila.
Yes.
Good evening.
Good evening. Can you give us a situation report of what is going on there?
Well, as it stands, we just gained access to the premises of the SGF, the Secretary to the State Government. So we are waiting with bated breath, hoping that some resolution will come up, because right now there are talks going on between the labor leaders We have a Minister of Information. We have the Secretary to the State Government. We also have a representative. We're not sure, but feelers coming in says indicates that a representative from the Budget Office, the Finance Minister, Salaries and Wages Commission, Organized Private Sector, all are well represented at the talks right now. So we are hoping that they will come up with a resolution that will be mutually beneficial to both parties, involved in these talks.
Tekla, what were you able to gather before the break? What were they doing? How was the negotiation going?
Well, as it stands, from the feelers, from the grapevine, the talks are on. The talks are on. The labor is pushing for a living wage, while the government, the representative of the government is advocating for minimum wage, something that would be reasonable, that would also engender sustainable growth, because businesses are shutting down because of the realities, which is not, peculiar to Nigeria, but a global trend. So it's about communication. It's about coming up with an agreement that will that would benefit both parties at this time.
Thank you very much, our correspondent Tekla Wilkie there in the office of the SGF. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Up